And welcome back. Today's word was guild. A guild, or in some games a clan, is a group of players who have joined together under a certain name with the usual intent on playing together. And with that out of the way, let's get into our second review.
Ever wanted to chop the crap out of a bunch of bad guys? Do you need help getting the blood out of your clothing? Well, you've come to the right place. And no, we're not talking about Dead Space and its strategic dismemberment style of play. Today, we're looking at Afro Samurai for the Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3, which is undoubtedly one of the goriest games for the next-gen systems.
You play as Afro, a samurai living, or perhaps reliving, a Japanese-styled world of swordsmanship and bloodbathing. Afro faces copious amounts of baddies as he tries to untangle his history and avenge his father's death. You may think this sounds entertaining, and it is, but the game contains some fatal flaws that inevitably cancel out its plus sides.
But first of all, the game visually looks great. The gameplay is best compared to reading a comic book, as frequently windows will appear giving Afro advanced warnings about objects and enemy locations. Now the character development and movement looks pretty sweet too. Afro's fighting moves flow surprisingly well with each other, making crazy combos a must for the player's survival. The only bad part about this is that the player will probably end up button mashing till their fingers are bloodied and sore, since it usually will produce a better attack than if you actually learn combos. But if you're so inclined to use combo, there is a mighty long list accessed from the back or select menu.
One thing we didn't like was the voice acting, especially since Samuel Jackson is one of the main voice actors. During the loading scenes, be prepared to hear Jackson scream the word Afro. If you aren't tired of it the first time you hear it, we promise you will be by the end of the game, and you'll want to keep your TV on constant mute. For the sake of all our ears, Samuel Jackson, please stick to your mother truckin' snakes on this mother duckin' plane. But all audio from Afro Samurai isn't bad. Rapper RZA produced the entire soundtrack, and it sounds great. At first, you don't realize how great ass-kicking and rap go together, like peanut butter and jelly. And while we're on the topic of red liquidy substances, the blood gore looks pretty cool too. If your combo is especially good, you might be rewarded with a spurt of blood that artistically drips down the screen. Good work, graphic designers.
Now, aside from the fighting, the music, and the beautiful carnage, the game progresses downhill quickly. As if a game about a samurai with an afro that doesn't know if he's really dead or not, but fights anyways, isn't confusing enough, there's virtually no navigational tool to help you find your way around the levels. All you get are boring, non-skippable cutscenes that vaguely point you in the direction you want to go, and this floating aura thingy that seems to lead you to dead ends. But then after spending a good 10 minutes wandering aimlessly through the level looking for a familiar sight, you'll just want to restart and try again. And don't wander too far from the restart button. One of those pesky lenses might catch you, and before you know it, Afro looks like he's doing a moonwalk. Boo glitches.
Overall, this game gets about 7.5 severed heads out of 10. We here at Game Over give this game a rent, just based on the slash and bash fighting aspect. But it's not worth the $60 you'll have to shell out for this title. And now we're going back to Emma for her favorite segment, Auto News.
Thanks, Colin. And it is time for my favorite segment, cars. Bad news for fans of domestic sport cars. General Motors has shut down their high-performance vehicle operations unit. Best known for creating the Cadillac CT-SV sports sedan, this unit was also responsible for the Chevrolet Cobalt SS and the HHR SS. While GM spokesman Vince Muniga was quoted as saying that all high-performance projects are on an indefinite hold, he also offered some hopeful reassurances. The Chevrolet Camaro SS, Corvette ZR1, and Corvette Z06 are described as being safe for the time being. Muniga pinned the blame on economic troubles and said that GM is now focusing on core products, passenger cars and crossover vehicles. No timetable has been given for when the cars designed by HPVO will be phased out of production, although they will at least finish their current model runs. While GM's high-performance lineup may be shrinking, quirky Swiss automaker Rinspeed is getting ready to introduce a car that grows, literally. Set to debut at the upcoming Geneva Auto Show, this Rinspeed iChange is a one-person electronic sports car that can extend to fit 2 extra passengers. Equipped with an electronic motor that puts out 201 horsepower, the iChange apparently can go from 0 to 60 in just over 4 seconds. The car may have solar panels on its roof, but it's missing a few things found in normal vehicles. For one, it doesn't have doors. The entire roof lifts up to let the driver in. Also, The change does away with traditional keys in favor of the Apple iPhone. And no, we're not making this up. Finally, we've got some important news for any Ferrari owners in the audience. The famous Italian sports car company is currently recalling nearly 2,000 of its F430 Spider convertibles. Apparently, the 2005 to 07 models contain a defect in the hydraulic hoses for the convertible top that can cause smoke and fire in the engine compartment. The National Highway Traffic Safety Administration says that a fire would be capable of rendering the vehicle inoperable and possibly resulting in a crash. Ferrari dealers will begin installing heat shields in the affected models later this month. If you own one of these cars, we recommend that you have it checked out as soon as possible. Our floor manager has even volunteered to drive it back to your house when the repairs are complete. Now, back to G with today's matchup.
Thanks, Emma. Now, in today's matchup, we're battling the top archaic game peripherals. And first up, we have the Power Glove for the NES, released in 1989. In theory, the Power Glove sounds okay, but in reality, it was rated by Screw Attack as the 4th worst gaming peripheral of all time because it's just impossible to use. For each game you play with the Power Glove, you have to put in a code. That means that anytime you want to use it, you have to go look up whatever game you want to play's Power Glove code. In The Wizard, which was basically one giant Nintendo product placement movie, a character says, "I love the Power Glove. It's so bad." Really? If Nintendo can't even endorse the Power Glove without saying, "It's so bad," does that really give anyone incentive to buy it? Now, there were only 2 games released specifically for the Power Glove, Super Glove Ball and Bad Street Brawler. Now, the gameplay in Super Glove Ball is actually the player trying to grab things, a super fun platformer from Mattel. Yeah, and it's made by Mattel in the United States, the same company that makes Barbie and the American Girl dolls now. Presenting the Power Glove, everything else is child's play. What a tagline, right?
Next, we have the robotic operating buddy for the NES, also known as Rob. In case the name itself didn't do a good enough job explaining its purpose, Rob is a robot who you can play games with in case you have something against single player and don't have any real friends to play with. I guess that sounds really pathetic, but Rob was only made for 2 games, and he was terrible at them. As soon as Rob finished a task, the person playing with him had to press a button, so it was all honor system. So yeah, you can play a game against a robot that is super loud, loves knocking things over, and you can cheat to beat him. But still surprised you have nobody to play with? Well, at least Rob is made in gray to match your NES. After Rob's very foreseeable demise, he began appearing in games such as Kirby's Dream Land 3, WarioWare, the Star Fox series, and even Brawl. So lucky for us, Rob lives on to remind you of the lonely days when you had no friends and had to play stack-up with an incompetent robot. So who would win? You tell us by checking out the Game Over Facebook group and voting for your favorite or most hated opponent.
And that's it this week for Game Over.
Tune in next week when we review Mortal Kombat vs. DC Universe and Grand Theft Auto: The Lost and Damned. We love you. Mom?